Hello, this is Martin Gore from Depeche Mode.
Hi, this is Dave Gahan from Depeche Mode, and you are listening to
My Nerd World.
Welcome to it. Depeche Mode, the podcast. I am your host, Jon Justice, and thank you so much, devotees, for joining another episode this week. As always, you can email talkshownerd@gmail.com, leave a comment up on YouTube, and an exciting week this is as tickets went on sale for the epic new live film M in Mexico. They Are a Religion. A trailer dropped, a little less than 2 minutes. Fantastic trailer, by the way. Has me incredibly hyped. Did you get your tickets? I got mine. I'll be going and seeing it on an IMAX screen on the Tuesday night of its debut. Staying up late on a work night, I will, to go and see this film. I also have some exciting news to share based off of what the director had to say in an article written by The Enemy about the film. So I'm going to share that article with you from The Enemy and the interview with Fernando, again, in its entirety, and share some of my thoughts about what he has to say, and some hints at what's to come in the near future. So, as always, I'd love to hear from you, talkshownerd@gmail.com, or leave a comment up on YouTube. We do have some listener feedback to get to this week. Been a little quiet, but last show was lacking quite a bit in terms of any sort of substantial content. So hopefully we'll hear from you between now and next week. And really curious if you got your tickets to the movie. The trailer got me really hyped. The trailer looks fantastic. And more specifically, the footage, the concert footage looks absolutely fantastic. Some of the ancillary interstitials, as they are described in the press release, they seem okay. They seem okay. I mean, listen, I would be heading to the theater just to see the concert in its entirety if they had gone and released that. So, but what I saw of the added material the director put into it did seem intriguing. But what I was most impressed by was the actual concert footage. So we'll get to your listener feedback of what I got this week here in just a moment. But first off, let's go ahead and dive into this interview and article from The Enemy. Depeche Mode have released the first trailer for M, and they have an interview with director Fernando Frias de la Parra. I guess I've been leaving off the de la Parra part. I hadn't really seen it up until now. The upcoming release, according to the article, follows on from Anton Corbijn's 2019 film Spirits in the Forest, and received rapturous reception at the Tribeca Film Festival. Set to screen on over 2,500 cinemas across more than 60 countries from October 28th, and then for a few days to follow. The film gives fans the opportunity to see Dave Gahan and Martin Gore on their journey into the heart of Mexican culture's relationship with death, framed by the iconic live performances. Conceived and directed by the award-winning Mexican filmmaker, M comprises footage from the band's 3 sold-out shows at the Foro Sol Stadium in Mexico City, held as part of their 23 and 24 stadium tour in support of the acclaimed album Memento Mori, the first release since the passing of bandmate Andy Fletcher. So I got a new car. I think I've mentioned this on the show. Has a pretty decent sound system in it. But I hadn't listened to Memento Mori yet. I don't have a CD player in it, which was a bit disappointing. Because I really do like the way the CD sounded in my previous vehicle. But the sound system is certainly an upgrade from my other vehicle. The other car was a 2014 Kia Forte Coupe, which I absolutely loved. Now I'm driving around a now discontinued, so it's a collector's item, 2023 Kia Stinger, which is pretty ridiculous with me driving around because that's way too much car for me, and it's stupid fast. Back to Depeche Mode. Listening to Memento Mori on that sound system, you know, it really does underscore how much the sound system makes a difference. My friend of the show, Matt, has this, and I can only imagine, so I'm just dreaming here, but he has this incredible turntable system in his new home. And I can only imagine what Memento Mori must sound like on it, because listening to it in my car for the first time with an upgraded sound system, the production on Memento Mori I thought was good before. It's impressed me even more. It sounds fantastic in my car. And I've said it before. I'll say it again. I wish they would go back and remix Songs of Faith and Devotion, because it does not sound nearly as good as Memento Mori sounds. And I don't know how you would do that unless going back to the masters and remixing it. I don't know, but man. Getting back to the article. At its core, our new film, M, is about the deep connection between music, culture, and people. And the director who conceived the film did a beautiful job telling a story through the lens of Mexican culture in all of our shows in Mexico, said Dave Gahan. So here's the interview with Fernando Frias. The Enemy asks, how did you come to be involved in the project? It was decided that the show for release would be shot in Mexico. They asked me for a proposal, and they knew that I wanted to walk away from working with fans because I'd done that recently, and also interviews. They'd said everything about coming back after the pandemic and the loss of Andrew Fletcher. So they wanted to be more focused on the show and the message of the album, which I thought was very interesting. My initial assumption was that my speculation was, and my question was this going to be sort of the Fernando Frias version of what Anton Corbijn did in Spirits in the Forest, Alive in Berlin, and then, of course, D.A. Pennebaker and 101 before it. And no, as we've found out from those that have actually gone and seen the film, it is more of a concert treatment than it is something that we've seen before. I wrote a couple of treatments. It was a tricky one. Without interviews and without fans' experiences, how can I build a solid narrative that goes along with the show? I showed them some visual references of how I'd like to cover the show, a celebration of the concept of Memento Mori. Remember, you must die. And it doesn't have to be confrontational. That's what life is. I found some archive footage and some other textures to work as an analogy. I've got a lot of obsolete technology that's born to die. It's also a metaphor to show how long that they've been here. We finally sat down to talk, and they said, we love the treatment. We've been working with the same people over and over, but we're happy to be back in Mexico. It's the biggest stadium on the tour. I didn't know that. And we're doing 3 sold-out shows, so tell us if there's anything you want to do. I was asking Dave how much we could be on him and the stage without being too intrusive. And he said, if you're getting in the way, I'll let you know. Just go for it. They also said that they had these amazing visuals on the screens, but that wasn't necessarily something that we're interested in capturing. They were there for the audience, but we need to focus on the performance for the film. So you spent a lot of time with the band. At the ending, there were a couple of shots with the band, writes the director. So we had a production day for Dave and Martin, and they were incredibly supportive and generous and kind. The Enemy asks, it must have been rewarding to have them choose to shoot in music, given the album's themes of Mexico's culture of understanding death as a part of life. The director, I think so. But it's also tricky because it's cliche. You know, the Day of the Dead, the movie Coco, it's become a flag for Mexican culture, and there's much more to it. The pre-Hispanic vision of death is very hard to grasp, even for us Mexicans. I find it reductionist to think of these things as a very dark coming together for a celebration. It's a completely different mindset. These are interesting things about the Mictlan, the Aztec other world. I didn't want to offer an ultra-reduced, pasteurized version of Mexico death, the Day of the Dead. That's out there everywhere if you want it. Music is something very abstract, but very concrete at the same time. I wanted to bring on authors, poets, artists, anthropologists that could comment on the idea of Mexico and death. I wanted to be very factual in a sense. An anthropologist says that the Day of the Dead is not even Mexican. It's a Catholic celebration. Carnival is not Brazilian because it's a universal thing to celebrate the crops coming in. Then we have this other part that accepts that we live with the imagery of death in Mexico. So I invited some writers and poets to write something about that. It's more of a piece that complements the show without being too obvious. The little vignettes and guest contributions really add a nuance to the film and let it breathe. Exactly, we have hours of interviews. Oh, I'm sorry, this was a question. So the little vignettes and guest contributions add nuance to the film and let it breathe. That was a question by the enemy. To which the director responds, exactly, we have hours of interviews and really interesting stuff, but we just wanted what would really help the rhythm of the film. The full is just one thing. It doesn't fully respect the order of the songs. We had to arrange and edit according to the information we wanted to get across and to bring a cadence. Bands mean different things to different countries, asked the enemy. How are Depeche Mode considered in Mexico? How were you looking to capture that? That's a great question, and that's where I started my treatment. Depeche Mode cut transgressively through Mexican society. You can see goth kids from the 80s who have stayed in the culture. Kids in the underground markets who still dress in leather overcoats in the summer. And then at the same time, posh people who have danced to Depeche Mode at all their celebrations. It's very hard to think of other bands that can completely take over the Mexican psyche, which is incredibly layered. We tried to capture that in our shots on the audience. Here, they're like a religion. You'll have people dancing to enjoy the silence at family parties, and others scouring for it on underground bootleg tapes. There's so many generations who love them and think they're essential. That's why the band chose to shoot in Mexico. I've been to see them in other countries because I wanted to get familiar with them before shooting. It's very different. To which they ask, how so? He says, it's hard for me to explain, but it's just the diversity of people all coming together for the same band. It's fascinating to witness. In other places, it feels a bit homogenic. And maybe the audience is a little more passive or respectful. Here, it's just crazy. It's an energy, and you see the crowd all vibrating. It's electrifying. It's about how extroverted the Mexican people can be, combined with how big the band are, and combined with the size of the venue they fill. After all, it's a huge celebration. So they wrap up with this question, and this is where the interesting tidbits come in. Naturally, you're dealing with two icons here, and Dave cuts a certain shape on stage. Did you feel any pressure capturing them? No pressure at all. The pressure only comes when choosing what angles to use, because they both have such a good presence. It was an invitation to be playful. David spins a lot throughout the show, so we wanted to do something different with that from the camera perspective. Dave is moving all the time while Martin has his own way of channeling the compositions, so we had to leave some songs out. But there's going to be an edit of the whole show with great things in. I'll get back to that in a moment. Depeche Mode M hitting theaters for a limited time on October 28th. Frontman Dave Gahan, let's see. Oh, this is just a separate thing where they did an interview with him. So, listen, it's clear, and obviously people have seen the film, and we've talked to those individuals on the show, and they've enjoyed the film. But it's clear that the director, Fernando Frias, understood the mission and understood Depeche Mode. And it has me excited to see this film now more than I even was before. It also confirms something that I've been speculating all along, and that is we're going to be getting a live physical release of the show. And the fact that the concert is only being released in theaters for a few days, I think you need to look at this going the other direction. This was always going to be something for a physical release. It being released in theaters is the bonus. And maybe that might have been the idea in the first place, but you're not putting out Depeche Mode M in theaters thinking you're going to make a ton of money. You're putting Depeche Mode M out in theaters thinking this is going to help you sell the product when you put it on the shelves. Now, I'd heard legitimate speculation and rumors of a live album. So my thought is we'll be getting a physical release of the show that will include the entirety of the show. And I am convinced of that, especially because of one data point. Actually, I have two, but one specifically convinces me of that. Marta Solongni was brought in to edit the mix. And if they brought in the producer of Memento Mori and doing a fantastic job, obviously James Ford was not involved in this part of it. But if they brought Marta in, then I assume it wasn't just to make sure that they got the sound mix right for the film. It was to make sure they got the sound mix right for the physical release. And I would imagine to go along with that, there will be a live album release. I hope we get physical copies. I want a disc of this. And as I've been saying on the show, those 4 unreleased Memento Mori tracks, I was wrong with In the End being released in promotion with the ticket on sale, which I had hoped had happened. But if I had to guess, and I'm going to, we'll get a physical release and we'll get a live digital release and hopefully a live physical release of the show. And included with the physical release will be those 4 unreleased tracks to help push the sales of the product. That makes the most sense to me. Because even if you had individuals that might have been hesitant to go and download the digital, purchase a hard copy, a physical copy of the movie or whatnot, you include essentially an EP of tracks that were from the Memento Mori sessions but weren't released with Memento Mori, and considering this is documenting that tour, that all makes sense to me. The real question is, how long do we have to wait before its release? I would hope that once its run in theaters is done that week in October, that the turnaround on this would be rapid and that we would get a physical release before the holidays. I also would imagine, too, that we would get word of that because they would need to get to the manufacturer to be produced and released in time for the holidays. I have not heard anything in regards to that. I just hope that's the case. And I hope they don't push the release until after the first of the year because that would really bum me out. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Did you get your tickets? Where are you going? When are you going? Is there anybody from Minneapolis that's listening to this show right now that's going to be going to the 7:30 show on Tuesday, the 28th? Oh, it's Southdale is where I'm going here. That's where I'm going to see it at the. It's a LIMAX. It's an IMAX screen, but it's not the full IMAX screen, so we call it the LIMAX. So I'd love to know if there's any Minnesota fans that are going to see the movie. And listen, maybe if there's a group going to a particular show, maybe I'll switch up and go to a different location. But I'd love to hear from you. And if you've gone and purchased your tickets. So drop me an email, talkshownerd@gmail.com, or you can leave a comment up on YouTube. So I want to share a story with you. Speaking of Memento Mori, I'm gonna keep the all of the players involved in this anonymous. Okay, so nobody gets in trouble. But now that we're a couple of years out from the release of the album, for those that have been listening to the show long enough, you know that I was able to get my hands on an advanced copy of the release. But I've never explained how I got it. I'm going to explain how I got it now. So, again, I'm keeping everybody out of this, so nobody is aware of what happened. I was messaged by a listener to the podcast, and they had informed me that somebody somewhere was working at a place where they were printing up the vinyl copies of Memento Mori, and they were able to go and sneak one out of the factory. That's how I ended up getting my hands on an advanced copy. Somebody had gone and taken the time and did an MP3 rip of the entire album, and then ended up giving me the files. What's really comical about it is because only Depeche Mode fans can relate to what I'm about to tell you. But the person that gave me the copies was concerned about it being shared and it being linked back to them. So they ended up dubbing into the tracks my name, almost as a watermark. So you'd be listening to one of the songs and then you would hear Jon Justice. Multiple times through every single track. So what did I do? I went in to my audio editor and I created remixes of every single one of the tracks and removed my name. So there is a version of Memento Mori that exists that nobody's ever heard, that only I own, where what I did was I snipped other portions of the track to fill in the blanks that were created when I removed my name, to give myself a better experience of listening to the album live. And it's funny because there's a few tracks where I ended up having to repeat lyrics, and I wanted to make sure that I still got the flow right. So there's like really bizarre edits where the lyrics still rhyme and flow, but it doesn't make any lyrical sense. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one that finds it funny. It was driving my wife nuts. She's like, "Are you still editing those songs?" I go, "Yes, I'm still editing those songs. I want to get my name off of them, for crying out loud." I totally understand why the individual did that. And I don't blame him at all for doing that. You know, thankfully, it never got traced back to him, didn't get leaked to anybody else. But that's how I ended up getting my advanced copy of it. And so hopefully, if that person is still listening, they're not upset that I told them how I did that. But yeah, actually, I have to go. I don't even know where that copy is now. I know I kept the files. I absolutely kept the files. But once I got the album, of course, I didn't listen to the other ones anymore because, I mean, I had to get really, really clever on a couple of songs, though, in order to make them sound right. It was not an easy task by any stretch of the imagination. All right, let's get to your listener feedback this week. And first off, my upfront apologies to the overseas listeners and my inability to go and pronounce names appropriately. I am so sorry. I do my best because I think I kept butchering another individual's name, and they're doing their best to try to get me pointed in the right direction of how they pronounce it. I know what it feels like, though. I mean, listen, my real last name is Logiudice. It's Logiudice. You can never tell how it's pronounced when you look at it on first blush. It means justice or justice of the peace in Italian. And that's why I ended up changing it to justice when I got into to radio. All right, first we hear from Franz, who writes this. I hope you're doing good. I'm currently in Kazakhstan and taking part in a volunteer program that is committed to species conservation here in the area of the Caspian Sea. That is incredible. I just think that's cool. Unfortunately, the internet connection here is very poor, which is why I have a phone call with my little sister every day. She stayed in Germany and has to tell me all the news about the new film or new music from Depeche Mode. I will return to my home country of Germany on the 21st of September. Happy travels. I hope safe travels. I hope that no new material from the band will be released before this date, knowing that a new song has been released and not being able to listen to it because of the bad internet connection would be incredibly frustrating and hard for me. I can't imagine what it would be like living in a place with a bad internet connection. Another problem is that I somehow didn't realize that all of Depeche Mode's albums, 83 to 93, are not downloaded on my phone. Oh no! This is a big problem because the music from these years is absolutely their best. As someone who mostly listens to complete albums, I'm forced to listen to the albums released before 83 and after 93. Yesterday, I listened to Exciter from start to finish since quite a while, and I loved it. Usually Playing the Angel and Memento Mori are my favorite pre-Ultra releases, but in my opinion, Exciter is up there with them. Easy Tiger, I Am You, Goodnight Lovers are such amazing ways to close the album. Maybe this is just a phase I'm going through, but I will definitely listen to Exciter more often from now. Another quick funny story before I wrap up Franz and his email. So last week I was talking about how I was also doing full album listens as of late. And I was specifically listening to the post-Ultra era leading up to Memento Mori. I don't know how it happened. I ended up just completely blasting past Sounds of the Universe. I went from playing the Angel directly to Delta Machine. I don't know why. I think my brain had flipped playing the Angel, and I didn't specifically set out to listen to all the albums. I hadn't listened to Playing the Angel in quite a long time, as I talked about last week, and I'm like, I'll listen to all the albums after that, and I just completely blasted right past Sounds of the Universe. I did take care of that and listen to it, by the way. Speaking of production, that production on that album is awesome. And it's also abundantly clear that Martin had a lot of toys to play with because there are a lot of different sounds on that album. Franz goes on to say, tomorrow, September 17th, I will celebrate my 19th birthday. Wow. Hearing new fans? That's incredible to me. That's just amazing. With the tickets for M being released on this day, M feels a little bit like a birthday present. Well, happy birthday to you. From the band, for me, he says. I think it will be another one of the best birthday presents ever. Greetings from Kazakhstan. Keep up the great work with the podcast, and I wish you all the best. Franz from Dresden, Germany. Thank you for that, Franz. And, wow, I have a son who's, going to be 19 in December, and so it's incredible to me that Depeche Mode still finds these fans and that this podcast can be a help, can be an assistance in facilitating the fandom. That's just incredible. All right, next we hear from Jorg. He says I can pronounce it like York, like New York, but it's not 100% correct. I think I kept saying George, so I think it's Jorg. Jorg. And again, if I'm getting that wrong, I apologize. Which is really sad because I do the shows after I do my weekly radio show, and often we're into the latter part of the week, and it's getting a little phlegmy there. I know that's gross, but all right. Jorg writes this from North Germany here, and I think I mentioned a moment ago, it's sad I don't know German because I'm half German. Here's my little story about my first DM encounters. As a present for my 10th birthday, 1979, my 6-year-old brother gave me the Doors album, Waiting for the Sun. Probably my first cool, doing that thing with my fingers, air quotes, record. Because he was older and he had his own room and his stereo next to my room, I had to listen to his sound preference coming from the wall. Velvet Underground, The Who, Rolling Stones, etc. My taste in music was clearly influenced by my older brother. It must have been the same time around January 84. I was 14 and a half years old. I visited my good friend Michael of mine, who had an older brother, Thomas, too. His brother was only like 4 or 5 years older than us and into more modern stuff. We listened to music in their cellar where his brother had his room and record collection. He put on an album with different artists. It was a collection of some TV music show as far as I can remember. I heard for the first time Everything Counts, and I was like, what is this? Who is this? Thomas, the older brother, said the same, and I was like, Depeche, what? That was it for the moment. I didn't write it down. I didn't write the name down, and I continued to live my life. 2 months later, I heard People Are People for the first time. In Germany, it was released as a 12-inch in 84. As the speaker of the radio station mentioned the name of the band, I remembered the day in January the same year. Depeche Mode. There it was again. Probably from this moment, I was hooked. For my birthday, Michael presented the green and a white 12-inch of People Are People to me. What a great piece. I still have it in my collection, and many, many more. Additional info, he writes, Michael and I and 2 other mates from our school days still managed to spend 1 week holiday together. Next year, we'll have our 40-year anniversary. It was Michael who told me during one of those stops in late 2022 that Fletch had passed away. I'll never forget how strange this moment and day was to me and the rest of the boys. Well, that shall be it about my first DM encounter. Take care. More thoughts about this and next time. Greetings from Hamburg, Germany. And again, Jorg, you can pronounce it like York in New York, but that's not 100% correct, but it'll do. Thank you for the email, as always, friend of the show. I appreciate it. Speaking of People Are People, if you listen to the podcast almost exclusively, if you're interested, head on over to youtube.com. If you search for my name, Jon, Jon Justice, So, as I talked about last week, the conservative political commentator Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and obviously, if you're here in America, you're aware of this. It's become a major point of contention across the country. If you're overseas, you're probably watching this from overseas. I was inspired over the weekend because the event impacted me like it did so many other individuals and continues to. Being just knowing this is an incredibly tragic and historical moment in the history of the United States, and something that's going to resonate for a long, long time. I took it upon myself to do a video using "People Are People." That song, while we know isn't Martin's favorite, the lyrical content certainly rings true today and is incredibly applicable to today. So I made a video. I call it a Charlie Kirk tribute, but really it's just a montage of news clips, commentaries from commentators and politicians, footage from Charlie Kirk's campus visits and Turning Point USA events, some audio from him as well. I created it more as a broad sort of encapsulation of what transpired leading up to that horrific moment at the Utah University where Charlie Kirk lost his life. That's why I created it. I needed to do something as an outlet. And if you're interested, I hope you'll head on over to YouTube. If you type in Depeche Mode, People Are People, Charlie Kirk, I'm sure it'll pop up. But you'll find my page, just Jon, Jon Justice there. And it's available if you're interested in going and checking it out. There is a bit of a narrative to it, but really, again, it was a lot of sound bites, snippets, and footage of Kirk combined together to show the totality of different ancillary events that lead into that horrific day. So, again, if you're interested and listen to the show almost exclusively on the podcast, head on over to YouTube and you can check it out there. Also, as always, if you enjoy science fiction, I hope you'll check out my science fiction space opera series. 7 books in all complete the series. A trilogy with a spin-off story that serves as book 4, followed by another trilogy that tells also a complete story. It's 2172, flight culture has replaced car culture. And in book 1, 2 of Earth's largest corporations now supply the planet with the technology and fuel to make air and space flight available to everybody. Subsequently, as Earth faces its end, you'll follow the adventures of Taft, Catha, and their crew on a journey of survival from Earth and across the galaxy as they fight for humanity's future. There's no agenda with my books. It's good versus evil, freedom and liberty versus tyranny, wrapped up in a fun, fast-paced, action-packed science fiction adventure. Again, told over 7 books in all, available in ebook, Kindle Unlimited, hardcover, paperback, and audiobook, produced and narrated by me. If you enjoy science fiction filled with a lot of 80s through the 2000s music nostalgia, as I made the music of the 80s through the 2000s popular among the characters of the story, much like what Ernie Klein did in Ready Player One. Ton of references, both direct and indirect, to Depeche Mode as well. Head on over to Amazon.com and search for Jon, Jon Justice, and EMBARK, E-M-B-A-R-K, and you can check it out there. As always, I hope wherever you are, devotees, you're happy, you're healthy, and you're safe. I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll talk to you guys again next week. God bless and bye.
Hello, this is Martin Gore from Depeche Mode.
Hi, this is Gahan from Depeche Mode, and you are listening to
My Nerd World.
And Depeche Mode, the podcast.